And we are live. Hello and welcome to Developer Insights. I'm David.
And I'm Justin.
Together we're leads on game development and on design here at Codename.
We also founded Codename too.
We're going to be your hosts for this episode and for every episode.
At this point, if we're not here, the show doesn't happen.
Still true.
Today is our 83rd episode.
We're getting so close to 100 episodes.
Oh, you jinxed it. Now we're going to get canceled before we get there.
Why would we get canceled?
Wait a minute. I thought we stopped doing these we're going to get canceled jokes like 70 episodes ago.
Well, you see, there's a cyclical nature to humorous intros. Just like punk pop music or disco pants. What's old becomes new again.
Wait. Are disco pants back in fashion?
Well, no, not that specifically. But if you can keep holding out hope.
As always, we are here to answer development and design questions about idle champions.
If you don't ask any questions, however, you might have to suffer through Justin's one-man reenactment of him losing at Settlers of Catan last night.
Okay, listen. If people had just not traded with Stefan like I told them to repeatedly...
But I needed sheep.
That's no excuse.
I know. It's painful. We won't make you reenact it.
Right. Thank you, chat, for asking questions and saving me the pain.
As always, we have pulled forward some questions from the previous show that we didn't get to, and we'll answer some of those while we're waiting for new questions to come in. But before we get to those, I have a few updates on items that we flagged to get looked at by the dev team. So without further stalling for time, we'll get started with those. Okay, let's see. What do we got? So if you remember last stream, we did have quite a few items that had gotten knocked off of the list, which was a good change of pace. We do have two more that were in progress last week that are done now, and I believe they went out in a build yesterday, at least for Steam and any other platform that gets a quick update. I know that's what the changelog said. And so we're looking at the familiars being recalled from other parties. So instant familiar recall is done and out in the latest build, as well as we've added a new feature for setting your champion skin to random. This means that if you select that at the beginning, or if you select the random champion mode, it's in the skin menu. Every time you start a new adventure, your champion will switch to a new random skin, which is fun if you have a lot of skins and you want to show them off. We still have a couple items in progress, but that list has gotten a little shorter, so we will need some new items from the chat to fill this back out. Still underway is saving feats with formations. I know Alex has got a good start on that, but looks like the ETA on that is probably 1 or 2 more weeks. But it is being worked on, and the indicator for the unread changelog is still the other remaining item on that list. So like I say, we'll need to fill that out with suggestions from the chat. So if there was something we haven't gotten to yet, feel free to mention it today and we'll fill that back up. So let's get on to questions from last week's show. Let's see. First question from last week is from Emote, asking, the new Witchlight Global Blessing gives a buff for a day after completing a season quest. Will this also include emergence dailies for when a season isn't running?
So from a design perspective, it should not, and I don't see why it would from thinking about how it was probably implemented. But I am not 100% sure on that. The design intention is that no, it would not include emergence dailies, as those are not season quests. Okay,
makes sense. Next question. This one is from Emerald Clave. Asking, any chance of a seasonal challenge mode where players can play from a fresh slate with certain challenges and limitations added?
So yeah, this is an interesting question from last time that I was sad we didn't get to last time, but it's kind of asking for what a lot of sort of some of our streamers do with fresh accounts, where they will start an account where they can only play without opening chests, or with with just the core champions or something like that. And I don't think that we'll end up doing something like this anytime soon. It's a pretty big challenge to kind of have the game sort of ignore all of the stuff that you have. and start from a fresh slate and not have some weird edge cases where you might, it's a big can of worms for something like that is probably not worth the amount of effort it would take to implement something like that. But it is a cool kind of self challenge that you can do. Certainly accounts for Idle Champions are free, so you can always start another one and try to challenge yourself in some way that is outside kind of the normal limitations of the game. So I think it's a cool idea, but probably not something that's worth adding to the game at this point. The next question here is from Psychosis28, who asks, does game speed affect the spawn rate on distractions at all? Which is an interesting question.
Yes, and of course we actually saw this and had a chance to look this up before the start of the show, which meant we could verify it. The spawn rate on distractions, there's two types of distractions. They're tagged as flying distractions and as background distractions. And the background distractions spawn at random when the background, as the backgrounds scroll. So the faster the game speed is going, the faster those distractions spawn. And then as far as the flying ones, those are on a game timer that is on game time, which means that as game speed increases, the rate of those spawn also increases. So game speed, the spawn rate of distractions is constant with the game speed.
Cool.
All right. Next question. This is from Rough Rider 1995. Why does Xeraphon's all champion damage buff show in the incoming effects, but some others don't?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, and it was actually it was from last week's episode, and it was actually related to some other questions that we had last week about how to flag positional formation abilities, so that ones are positional versus global versus stat based or attack type based or something like that. And there certainly are some edge cases where there are abilities that affect everyone that show up on incoming effects, and other cases where they don't. I think the general from a design side, our general impression is that we should probably find a way to get all of these to show up, but not necessarily under the incoming kind of like incoming formation abilities section. There are a bunch of things we want to do to the incoming and outgoing effects tabs on the character profile that we just haven't gotten around to yet. Like, we want to separate out passive abilities, ones that are always active. So for example, why can't I think of a good example? There's a couple of champions that have, they're always available in a certain patron or variants or whatnot, and those are generally done via passive abilities, and they don't really show up anywhere in game right now. Dungeon Master is a good example. Dungeon Master is available in any adventure, regardless of the requirements. And that doesn't really show up anywhere nice. So we'd like to separate that out and have sort of a passive ability section. And then I think, having incoming and outgoing positional formation abilities would be really good. And then having something for incoming and outgoing global abilities would be really useful as well. So I think down the road, we'll hopefully get all of these types of abilities showing up, incoming and outgoing. You'll actually be able to see where all the sources of damage bonuses outgoing and incoming are. But for now, it's a little bit mismatched based on kind of who implemented it and how it was implemented.
Okay.
Next question here. Actually, we're going to new questions from this week, and I've got one for you, Dave, right off the bat.
Exciting.
This question is from Randram, who asks, well, I've seen others interested in buying more chests now that we can open batches of 1,000. That interests me less than being able to get a slider for 1,000 or 10,000, preferably, bounty contracts, as I often get RSI type issues when opening tens of thousands, 50 at a time.
It's repetitive stress injury from opening too many chests or too many bounty contracts.
That is a lot of bounty contracts.
Yeah, 10,000 bounty contracts at a time. What would be the... Do you have a theory on why you want to use 10,000 at a time?
Yeah, you're just trying to get event tokens so you can buy event chests for champions.
I see. You're just sort of burning through them.
That's it. Trying to get more gear.
Yeah,
more gear levels.
I think the bounty contract, like, there's not a huge concern in terms of like the performance on the server for a bounty contract. The main issue with the bounty contracts, well, other than not wanting earlier players to sort of be able to just burn them all in one shot, was the performance implications of all of the items that spawn from them. I mean, I don't know. This feels like something that we could discuss as far as like adding options to open large numbers of things at once. But I mean, I don't from a technical standpoint, there's not an issue with this. So it really just becomes a question of is that a feature that makes sense to have? Did you have any thoughts on that, Justin? I think it's sort of from a design perspective more than from a technical one.
I think from a design perspective, I would like to go back in time and make it so that part of the late game isn't doing this kind of thing to get item levels, because it's not really conducive to kind of how we wanted the game to be, played, how we wanted events to be accessed in the first place. So, I mean, from one side, I'm like, well, the cat's kind of out of the bag on that, and we should just, do something that is good for the players who want to play that way. And the other part of me is, sort of thinking, well, by doing that, we're also encouraging that behavior that is not necessarily, how we intend for it to be done. But it's our own fault for getting the game into that state. So.
Well, that doesn't really answer the question, but
no,
I don't know if that's
I am of mixed
feelings on that one.
Mixed feelings on this, absolutely.
Right. Okay. Well, something we can certainly discuss and see if it makes sense to increase that amount. Probably not 10,000, I don't think, but potentially higher than what it's currently set to, which is 50, right?
Yeah. 50, yeah.
All of the limits have been slowly creeping up, so this makes sense. Okay, next question. This is from Library of Akasha. Currently, the time gate piece timer is reset after you log in, and offline progress collects it. It doesn't calculate the hours before you log in when it should have been obtained. Could you please fix it so it calculates these hours lost? Yeah,
so for folks who don't know, the way that the time gate piece timer works is after you get a time gate piece from a boss, there's a fixed amount of time before you can get one to drop again.
Yeah,
and then after that point, you've got like a 20% chance per boss. It drops pretty quickly after that point in order to give you your next one. And so if you're really on top of it, if you're online and killing bosses very quickly, you'll generally get it right as that sort of cooldown timer is up. Now, I think what Library of Akasha is saying here is that with offline progress, it is just whenever you log on and calculate the offline progress, that's when it sets the cooldown to start, which does sound like a bug, and the cooldown should start at the point at which it would have dropped during offline progress. So I think we can highlight this one and see if we can look at that, because that should just be a back-end fix, I think. I think we can hack a back-end fix.
That timer still has a random factor attached to it, right? That was how we implemented that?
I think it's a fixed amount of timer. It's a fixed timer, and then there's a random chance after it's up. I don't think it's...
okay. I thought it had some sort of like a plus or minus 4 hour thing in it, but I don't recall exactly. I know we did that like 5 years ago. It's one of the first things that went in.
Code. Yeah. I'd have to look at the code to see, but I don't think it does, because I think people have a pretty reliable view of how often it drops at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. All right. Next question. This is also from Mirandram. With the Witchlight 9 blessing, which is active based on completed season quests, it'd be absolutely lovely from a concept point of view to have any kind of way to see whether that's active and potentially a duration. Not sure I articulated that well. Since it's all champs and doesn't even show up on character sheets as incoming buffs, it's like some positional perks or local blessings would.
So basically I think what they're asking here, there's a Witchlight 9 blessing, a global blessing that after you complete a season quest, you get some buffs. It's actually the one that we were talking about in the in one of the questions from the last show about will it include emergence dailies, and there's basically there's it's what they say. There's no way to view whether or not it's active and how long it's going to remain active for. So I think in the spec I did call for like a buff window, but that probably got eaten by the potion manager or something. And so it might be something that we'll have to look into again. I mean, this is another kind of thing that if we were to redo the character profile, that we would be able to put on the sort of incoming blessings effects, because there's a lot of blessings effects that don't necessarily show up anywhere. Some of the positional ones do show up, like the ones where it's like they have to be in the top row or the top row of a formation or something like that. That shows up in incoming positional effects on character sheets, but some of the global ones don't, that really could. And so I think, having those all show up, that would be a good spot for this. It would just show up on all the champions in the formation, and we could probably put a duration on that. So I think that's a thing for that time when we get to redoing those.
Okay. Next question. This is from Wakies. Will there be any compensation for the massive reduction in power for formations that used and invested in Nova? I.e. Warduke, for whom Nova literally isn't used anymore after the fix.
Yeah, so this one here, there was a bug, I guess, where one of Nova's specializations that extended her crew ability, I think, was counting twice for when you inverted it or something. There was some weird interaction where it was basically counting twice, potentially Warder. I thought it also included Artemis in there. We fixed that issue, and because it wasn't, the way that it was implemented was not the way it was supposed to be implemented. So it we haven't talked internally about whether or not to do a dismantle for Nova. I feel like there's a slippery slope there where people are going to be like, well, I only use the Nova with Valentine, and now Valentine isn't useful anymore, and then Artemis isn't useful anymore, and then Warduke isn't useful anymore, and then this whole thing. I feel like there's still plenty of DPS out there for folks who are after it. But yeah, we'll have to talk about that internally and see if there's something we want to do for that. It's tough. It's a tough one.
Okay. Next question. This is from Library of Akasha, asking, can you please make it so that we can directly buy silver event chests for 5,000 tokens? Less eye levels gained compared to buying gold event chests, but there's still the 1 in 1,000 chance of getting a shiny equipment. I don't think we're gonna do this. I think adding that into the shop would likely just cause confusion for newer players who don't realize that they're getting a bum deal on silver event chests compared to gold ones. You can still get quite a few silver event chests from running time gates. If you run a time gate and you grind up to area 2000 or whatever, you'll get 20 silver chests for that champion. So there's still some avenues there for getting a whole bunch of silver event chests that doesn't involve using tens of thousands of bounty contracts to full shiny champions. I don't think we're going to do this. You'll have to spend 20,000 event tokens to do it instead. Okay. Next question. What else would we be doing? This is also from Library of Akasha. Thoughts on making seasons a bit more like events? Season token like event tokens, and adventure variants that we can run for season champion chests. The chests and eye levels we can get from the season shop are rather limited.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we designed seasons intentionally different from events. We intentionally kind of changed how they function to fix some of the shortcomings of events, and also just to make them feel different from events, because we didn't want to just have two very similar feeling events running at the same time. We wanted seasons to last a little bit longer. So I don't think we have any plans to make this kind of change. I mean, honestly, it feels like you're asking for the ability to be able to have bounty contracts drop season tokens so that you can just get infinite stuff from the season store, which, while I respect that that's something you want, is not necessarily something I want. So,
dear. Not that that's going to be, yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Next question here is from Engel Tigra, who asks, that's how I'm choosing to pronounce it, who says, after the server maintenance, my game keeps telling me it can't connect to Steam when I try to open it most of the time. I have to exit and reload Steam to make it able to connect. Any ideas?
So I mean, that's an odd, I like my gut feeling is that's a coincidence with the server maintenance, because I'm not sure how that would impact your ability to connect or to verify with Steam. And the fact that you have to close and reload Steam to make it able to connect. I know there were some issues a couple of weeks ago with Steam. They updated their client, and it resulted in there being a delay in when the login credentials were sent server side. It's kind of when the game goes to log into Steam, the game client actually talks to the Steam client and asks for an authorization key, which then gets verified server side, that gets sent to our server, and our server sends it to Steam server, and Steam server either says, cool, this is who this user is, or they say, nope, don't know what you're talking about, that authorization key doesn't exist. And they had an issue about 2.5-3 weeks ago where one of the client update had actually it was being slow to send it to Steam servers, and so when we went to ask for it, it was like they didn't know anything about it yet, but if you waited like an extra second, it worked. Now I'm not 100% sure if that would be related to this, but certainly we haven't seen any widespread, or really, I mean, none that I'm aware of people having issues signing into Steam after the server maintenance. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what to suggest there. I mean, I assume at this point you probably have your Steam client updated. I would be curious to see if we've seen any other reports of this from Steam, because that would kind of be the best way to isolate and track that one down. Justin, I don't know if you've heard any reports coming in. No, okay.
I mean, I've seen a couple of emails over the last week and a bit, but not a huge amount of stuff. It does feel to me like this is probably more related to what you were saying about the Steam issues from before maintenance than maintenance itself.
Yeah, because as I said, the Steam client does contacts Steam, the Steam servers, and actually sort of tells them that an incoming request is about to arrive, and that it's valid.
I remember Peter was saying when you get that like cannot connect to Steam message, like 9 times out of 10, it's nothing to do with our servers, and entirely something between the client and Steam. But I don't know much more beyond that. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't have anything beyond that that's super helpful, unfortunately, other than to keep an eye out to see if other people are experiencing it as well, and then if there are, then maybe we can find a commonality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next question. This one is from Library of Akasha. They're asking, please make it so season champions do not appear in the free time gate choices. They're already half off. I got super unlucky during the last free time gate and got Birdsong, Spurt, and Esmeralda as my choices. Esmeralda finished her variants before she retired, and Birdsong and Spurt, I did all their variants already at half price. Pain.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and we should make that so. We can add a time gate blacklist for them while they are in the season.
Okay. All right, next question. This is from OG17. Evandra has stats for feats to get her into Strad and Zariel. and is always eligible for Witch Wild campaign. But she can only pull affiliated teammates into Witch Wild, which really limits how many fans could use Nixie. Could Evandra instead pull teammates into anything she is eligible for, so the team might be used for whole patrons instead of just one campaign?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. It's something that sort of the design team has debated a decent amount of time. And we've got sort of the Mahen, the Frida, and Havilar who can be pulled into a lot of stuff. So that whole kind of Brimstone Angels can be pulled into anything. And we wanted to kind of try and make sure that we weren't just replicating that with every affiliation. Otherwise, everything starts to feel pretty samey. You know, the whole purpose of patrons is to force you to use a different formation for each patron, so that you have a different kind of challenge getting through the various variants. And if we, sort of made it too easy to have basically very samey groups between patrons, then it would kind of really limit the whole reason that we have patrons in the game. So I think at this point, we're pretty happy with Evandra just letting people go into Witchlight instead of all the other campaigns. And I think we'll continue to experiment with the limits of how we kind of open this kind of stuff up. It kind of all started with Dungeon Master, and we've been using it. I don't know if more than we should have or less than we should have, but it doesn't feel. It feels on the edge of being overdone at this point. So we'll kind of continue to play around with that as we go.
Okay. Let's see. Next question. This is from OG17. And they ask, I had the impression that pigment types would be cycling every emergence, but second emergence has support pigments again. Will all pigments run twice in a row, or has something changed?
Yeah, we were initially thinking that we would try to cycle the pigments between emergences, but it turns out that not it turns out, but just kind of thinking about it more, support pigments are really the ones that players are going to be able to find the most use out of. There's only a certain number of DPS pigments that you really want or need. Same with healing and tanking pigments. And so I think that by having support pigments in there, I think they are a more desirable item for people to go after. And sort of the plan is to maybe sprinkle some of the other pigments through some of the other systems that we have. So for example, season rewards and quarterly celebrations and stuff like that. So at this point, yeah, I think emergencies will generally have support pigments in them. But never say never. We obviously we look at all of the feedback from every season, from every emergence, from every event, and we are not afraid to make changes if the feedback is good, or we can find a compelling reason to do it. It looks like the giveaway is ready to go.
You're not going to give away my aluminum chests, are you? Because I need those.
Don't worry, we are not giving away your aluminum chests. But it is time to give away some chests, specifically 42 chests, and we will give those chests to the person who wins the random selection in chat. The way that this works is very shortly in chat, Moobot will say a keyword that you need to type in. You type in that keyword, and that will automatically enter you into a draw to win 42 chests of your choice. It can be any type of chest. If you win, you can pick any type of chest that's in the game, except for Gloria Bahamut chests, because those are going away. And you cannot pick a type of chest that doesn't exist in the game, such as Dave's imaginary aluminum chests, or those...
They're not imaginary. I showed them last week.
No, they don't exist. So that is happening right now. You can type disco devs into chat, and that will enter you for a chance to win. I suggest Modron component chests. Those are the best chests. Get as many of those as you can. In fact, get them and then tell the support person to put them on my account instead, because I want more. Though I suppose I could just give myself more, but that's no fun. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. Let's see. Shevik74 asks, thank you for the new chest opening. Can we now have it everywhere? It feels a little bit weird being able to open 1,000 chests, but only be able to buy 50 at a time.
This is what always happens. This always
give
happens.
Give them an inch. This is why I say, just don't give them anything. Like,
give them an inch, they want 1,000 inches. A kilo inch? Is that a
kilo inch? Sure.
Yeah, we can mix them together.
We can mix metric and anytime we want.
Yeah, a word for a kilo foot. Anyway,
you could also just say 1,000 inches.
Yeah, I could, but yeah, it's a good question. It does make sense that potentially we bump up the limits in various other places. I think that came up a little earlier as well. It's like for the bounty contracts, and it's worth noting that then was iterated again as a question here. Library Vikash also asked again for the bounty contracts, but since we already answered it, we didn't ask it again. But yeah, I think we could certainly look at some of the limits, sort of do maybe a review across the board on what things are set to. I do think there's some considerations for earlier players. You know, we get new players into the game and have like a giant slider bar of like, oh, look, you could open up 1,000 of these. It can be a little bit daunting, maybe is a word for it.
Overwhelming.
Yeah. So we don't want to scare people with something like that, but I think we could put in some options that are like enable large quantities. It could be a setting somewhere, and just then everything gets bumped up across the board, provided there's not some sort of technical reason that we're limiting that, like the chests were. But yeah, we can take a look at that.
Cool. Let's see. Next question is from the Mad Mallard. This is another one. Thank you very much for the random skin option. Not wanting to seem ungrateful, but would an option to set it as default rather than be setting it on each be possible? There's actually a bunch of people who asked about this.
Yes. So the funny thing about this is actually when Jarrett went to implement this, there was sort of a miscommunication, and he did implement it as a setting initially where it was just you turn it on and it applies to everybody, but we did actually kind of walk back from that because I think it makes sense to be able to select skins for the champions you wish to have selected, and then select random ones for ones that you want to more see a rotation. You don't have like a particular one that's your favorite. This is a good question. Is there a way that we could add something that just sort of applies it across the board? I see a couple of follow-up comments on this here. I see Mars pointing out that he's got 120 champions. It's tedious to do beyond 10. And then another follow-up here asking about if we could get it for one for familiars as well. Which of course we don't have a whole lot of familiar skins, but hey, maybe more familiar skins, a suggestion there. Yeah, you can think about an option to do this. It's kind of an odd case because it is a one-off. I wouldn't want to have it as just a setting, because I think you do want, I don't think there's a case where you just want it on everybody, or at least you want to allow the option to be like, hey, you specified that it's random for this champion, but you really do have ones on other champions that you prefer where the skin that it's stuck with. Yeah. Like I said,
I'm sure we can discuss it and see if we can find a solution that makes everyone happy. I'm sure we cannot do that, but I'm sure we can find a solution that can do something like this.
Yeah, because it's kind of like a batch set. Like, set all of my skins to random, and then you want to go in and set the ones that you wanted to be not set to random, not to random. Yeah. It may not be the biggest. It might not be the end of the world if you have to go in and set it to random once when you get a skin. It's just sort of this overwhelming initial implementation of the feature where you have all your champions to set.
Yeah.
We can think about it. Okay.
Next question is from Sundialer, who asks, will hotkeys for new systems like seasons or adventuring parties be added? Yeah,
that's a good point. I think we could have I think a hotkey for a new system isn't in the list of things that are like, oh, when you add a new system, we should definitely add a hotkey for it. I think this was the case for the previous systems too, where we went through and did a pass and made sure that everything did have a hotkey. So yeah, that's a fair point, that those don't have hotkeys. I'm just going to tag that because I think it should have hotkeys. They just don't yet.
We just have to hope that S and P are not taken.
I think are both S and P taken?
They're probably both taken.
Is P multi-party and S is...
Well, eventually party is multi-party, so I would think that would be the same. Oh, patron. P is for patron, of course, and S is for shop. That makes sense.
Look at that.
P is for... We should do a Idle Champions ABC book. P is for DPS. Yes, I think we could definitely look at that.
All right. Next question. This one is from OG17, asking, just checking, but emergence feats will land in the gem shop after they're removed from the Enclave, right?
Yes, that is true. They will be in the gem shop. They will also go into wild offers, but they will be available for gems as feats normally are. At this point, I don't think we have many exceptions to that rule. Oh, and I am very much enjoying the ABC.
Oh no.
The ABC is going on in chat. Keep them coming. F is to pay respects. Let's see. Next question here is from Library of Akasha, who is winning today on the number of questions. And they ask, why does the use additional bounty contract slide in from the left side of the screen? If you're spam clicking, you might click cancel, since the cancel button is still active while the prompt is sliding into place. So
maybe a slightly cheeky answer to why does the use additional bounty contract slide in from the left, because that was the default transition for dialogues. That's why. Yeah. There wasn't a particular reason beyond that. I mean, I think we used that for basically unless it had something otherwise specified. Dialogues transitioned in that way. So I can see there could be an issue with the cancel if you could click it while it's sliding in. I mean, we can make an adjustment to that so that it's disabled until the transition is complete. That's not a big deal. But yeah, that's the default transition for all dialogues unless we specify something different.
Yep.
Okay. Yes.
You want me to ask you this one?
Did someone delete my Dark God?
Oh, yes, I did. I wasn't sure if that was... Anyway, this question is from Garwar, who asks, what dark god did you make a sacrifice to so that Wednesday's transition went as incredibly smooth as it did? A season ending and 2 events starting never went smoother.
You invented the Dark Gar is who we made the sacrifice to. I was going to say it was Lord Apothis, but I'm going to go Dark Gar is a better option. I think we'll stick with that. Yes.
I mean, I think this some of this is related to just we're just getting better at things, and I do think that the server transition that we did last week also really helped with this. A lot of the kind of bottlenecks around stuff ending and starting is around that one server that we transitioned, and so I think there were definitely some improvements from that. I think we've seen definitely less red bars on the servers since we finished that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what's been helping. I don't think we haven't made any specific changes around that beyond the change in the server.
Yeah, and the chest opening optimizations as well could very well be helping with that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a potential, especially if there was a lot being opened at that time. So yeah, I can see that, because those definitely held a process for,
Yep. Let's see. Next question is from Emote, who asks or says, thank you for the random skim mode, but it seems that you can't choose the no skin as an option unless it is the only one. Is that intentional? Seems like a very odd choice if it is.
I mean, why would you want to choose no skin? If you, I honestly, that does seem like a mistake.
It does seem like a mistake.
When we were adding the random skin option, there were some. I'm not sure if you noticed this or not, but the dialogue is actually a little bit different. The layout of the skins is different. We got rid of the page mode, like it had a little carousel with the scrolling skins in it, and we got rid of that. We actually have it lay out everything so you can see them all at once, which did result in a bit of a rewrite of how all the layout is done there. And I think there were some other changes to the actual like skin display items as well. So I could see that something could have gotten a little bit broken there. So I'll highlight that and run it by Jarrett and see if there's something that we can take a look at. Because the intention is definitely not that you can't pick it unless it's the only choice. So it does sound like a bug. Okay, next question. This question is also from Emote. You've hinted that Trials will be receiving some changes at some point. It's a fair point. Some changes at some point. Hopefully sooner than later. Are changes to the Reforge system likely to be included in those? It still feels very bad to spend time and limited resources to improve an item, only to have it end up worse, especially on champions with only 3 applicable legendary effects for your chosen DPS. They are a nightmare to Reforge.
Yeah, so I think this is a really good question. The short answer is we have not spec'd out specifically what changes we're going to include in the legendary side of things. So we weren't planning on, at this point, on doing changes to the Reforge system. I do think that it would probably benefit from some quality of life updates. Sort of the thing that leaps out to me, and I'm not promising to do this, but it's just came at the top of my mind when reading this question, was just to kind of adjust the cost for reforging and make it so you could just pick the effect that it goes for. So, you have to pay a little bit more, but you at least get to go to the effect that you want instead of rolling the dice every time and potentially getting very, very unlucky. So that's probably where I would lean to if we were going to do something like this. But it's not something that's specifically planned for the Trials rework. The Trials reworks that we've been hinting at are more around the scales gaining side and sort of how you combat Tiamat and that sort of thing. And at this point, they have been bumped down in priority, actually, because we have bumped up in priority the collection dialogue rework, which sounds ridiculous to say out loud, but for longtime viewers of the channel, you will know that I've always been a big fan of potentially doing some changes to the collections dialogue, and that is actually, at this point, one of our highest priorities in terms of non-content pipeline changes. So that's coming first, and then the Trials changes are next on our plate after that. So, yay.
Okay, where were we? Okay, next question. This is from Loopy79. Can you tell us, or tell us when you can tell us, who the other 4 champions will be for the upcoming season?
Yes, I can't tell you who they will be, but
when does the season start? Because I bet you that's when we can tell.
No, I actually have. Let me just load this up. I know Dylan has created our marketing thing for this. Gosh darn it, I can't log into. It's somewhere. Yes. I believe that we are going to announce the champions and the blog on Dev Insights either next week or the week. I feel like it's next week. I think it's next Thursday.
Right, a week before, right? We're running another preview.
I think the season starts on the 15th or something like that. I don't even know if that's been announced yet, honestly.
Oh no.
It wouldn't be the 15th. It would be the 14th or the 21st. It's a little bit of a longer delay between season 3 and season 4. It must be the 21st. So it's either next Thursday or the Thursday after that we are going to announce stuff, and then it'll be a couple of weeks after that the season will start.
You better have that right, Justin, or we're in.
It'll just tune into Dev Insights every week, and you'll get the very
get a
first
hand wavy answer that may or may not be correct.
No. you will find out here. It might be next week. It might be next week, or the week after that, rather. But it will be here. And one of the reasons it'll be here is because one of the big things that's changing in season 4, spoiler alert, is the reward track. So we are making some pretty major changes to the reward track, and this will be the place to come to learn about those.
Right. It's the 21st, Justin. I
don't see that. We haven't actually announced that yet.
All right. Well.
Anyway, just tune in here, and you'll keep getting spoilers about stuff. And now I'm going to go watch the marketing team yell at me.
It's okay. They're not watching. Okay.
Hope not. Next question is from Niskix.
Nevertheless, we're not telling them who the 4 other champions are.
We can tell you just in a week or two. Next question is from Niskus, who asks, more pirate skins, please.
I highlighted this just because I wanted to second it.
Okay.
More pirate skins, please.
All right, well, let's just highlight that in yellow, and we will ask the dev team to draw some pirates. Okay. Next question.
Next question is from Library of Akasha, and they're asking auto conversion. As in, whenever you go over a certain number of potions of a certain level, it will automatically convert the excess to a higher level of potion. I'm hoping this will apply to scrolls and contracts whenever you do the scroll merchant. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea. I think it would definitely be something that would be linked to the alchemist or the scroll merchant or whatever, where it could maybe be an option that you put in there. Yeah, I mean, this is the general idea of the alchemist, is that you would be able to do this conversion. I don't know about automatic, but maybe, potentially. It is supposed to be an idle game. Okay.
There's another question here, just 2 down from here, that I may as well address while we're talking about the alchemist stuff. So the question from C Squared 1901, asking for any updates on potion transmutation and when they can change their 1e to the 4 fire breath potions to speed pots. So the answer to that is we do not have an update on it. It is still something that is designed for the most part. At least the first pass is designed, and we're just kind of waiting for a spot in the development pipeline to get that stuck in there. I will say that it could happen quickly once we find time for it. I know the potion, or not the potion manager was something that I think I was sick for like 2 days. And when I came back, it was done. I was like, what is this thing and where did it come from?
What, the potion manager? No, that was when you were...
Was I off? Oh, no, that was when I was off.
That was when you were off.
It was when I was on mat leave.
Yeah, because we did that
leave.
just before Christmas.
Physically have the baby.
And it went from a gleam in my eye to a completed feature in less than a week.
Yeah, it appeared very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I thought I was paying attention to what was going on, but apparently I completely missed that one until I got back. So yeah, it could happen anytime, and it could appear very, very quickly. We just do not have a slot in the dev cycles for it quite yet.
All right. Next question. Yeah, here's sort of question here is from Imaginal Disc. What about skipping? And this is in context to the earlier question about opening all those contracts. I think it's actually the first question. Anyway, the question is, what about skipping opening contracts and just give a pool of event tokens that freezes between events?
Yeah.
You look puzzled, Justin.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what this is. I'm not following exactly what the question is asking.
So I think they're asking, instead of having this process of you opening a ton of blacksmithing contracts at the beginning of an event,
bounty, but yeah,
bounty, obviously, yes. would it be better to be able to just have tokens that stuck between the events, so that wasn't sort of the goal, or that there wasn't so much onus on opening the say it again, the bounty contracts. But I'm not sure that addresses the issue.
Just open. I'm not sure what that addresses. Like, where do those tokens come from? I imagine they would come from opening contracts. So it would just move when you open all your contracts from the start of the event to as soon as you get them, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure it solves the contract problem.
Yeah, it does feel. It feels very awkward. And well, the whole getting the tokens from bounty contracts is also an awkward thing now that kind of the number of contracts you can get has accelerated so much. Sort of the original sort of idea with being able to get those bounty being able to get extra tokens from bounty contracts was, sort of being able to, when you got to a champion that you really liked, being able to invest a little bit more and get some more gear for them, either by doing more adventures or by buying the chests directly for the tokens. And I think that worked well up to the point where we kind of got, these gem farming formations and things like that, where, just the number of tokens you can get at this point via gold chests and silver chests has just accelerated into the ludicrous levels. So I think that, I don't know that this solves any of my kind of big problems with the system.
Ooh, we got a follow-up. The follow-up here is, sorry, to be more clear, when you get a contract, could it just hand you a token? Could it just hand you tokens that don't expire, but are only valid to spend during events, skipping the opening and expiration mechanics?
Yeah. So basically, what we kind of thought.
Okay. All right. Next question then. This is from Loopy79. Any further thoughts on adding a disable short-term buffs checkbox to the Modron automation screen? With seasons active for 10 weeks and a 3-week no buff window, the current system can require near daily fine-tuning of Briv automation for the majority of our time playing the game, which is very anti-fun. All right, I put a period where there should have been a comma. Being able to just turn off those season/weekend buffs would be very much appreciated.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a question that we've definitely seen before. When we've gotten, I know we got a bunch of these kind of
I think every season start.
Every season we've basically gotten this, and every time we've added any sort of system that adds more power to the game or removes power from the game or in any way tweaks power in the game. It's definitely a challenge for us because we don't want to spend a lot of time working on features that are incredibly niche. And this sort of thing, I think, is a fairly niche thing. I think most of the people who play the game don't spend a lot of time tweaking a very, very specific formation to do a very, very specific thing at very, very specific levels. It's a big challenge for us that this has kind of become the end game for a lot of players. It's definitely not something that I think is healthy for the game in the long term, but I don't have a good solution for it at this point. And I think leaning into it with features like this would be a mistake for the long-term health of the game, to be honest. So I don't think this is something I would do. I don't know if you have a different opinion on that, Dave.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, the niche portion of it is sort of where my mind goes immediately, or sort of initially. So because it does seem like it's, and I don't know. I guess the real question is I don't know how many players are doing this and how many are not. So I'm not sure how big of how many players we're talking about. I mean, certainly the idea of that being able to, the buffs are buffs for a reason, like they improve things. So having to, yeah. And then as far as like how this impacts what the end game looks like, I don't know. I'd have to think more about it. But yeah, my first thought is sort of how many people this is impacting. And as I said, I actually don't know, and I don't know how many players are in that boat. But
yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough question. It's a good question to ask, but it's a tough question to answer because we have to balance sort of the health of the game in the long run versus the desire of a set of players, and that can be. We want the game to be fun for as many players as possible, and obviously the set of players who is doing this kind of Briv automation is part of that set of players that we want to be able to have fun in the game. We just want to make sure that we're not doing stuff that's detrimental to the game in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to drive players into doing that if that's the
Yeah.
But it does make sense if that's what players are doing, that if we think of a way to provide an alternative that is functional but not this, if that's the... Yeah. Anyway. Next question. Probably our last question, I guess. This one is from Sescosis28. Has there been any thought towards a button like you have to remove all familiars, but for champions, to reset a formation?
So this question has come up before. I think the easiest thing to do here is to just save a formation with no champions in it and just load that formation. That's kind of what's come up before when this question has appeared. I think that separate from that, I don't think this is another kind of thing where I don't think it's necessarily worth our dev time to put that button in there.
They're saying there's a clear formation button, bottom left. Do we have a clear button? Did someone add a clear button? They're saying it's there.
Really? Bottom left is where the... What? How long has that been there?
I don't know. Okay. This is added months and months ago.
I would like to restart my answer to this. So, yeah, we did that. Yep. You're welcome.
Got him. All right. I think we're done.
There's an X. Okay.
Oh yeah.
See,
no. Now that you say that, I vaguely remember this because I remember Nick Wilson asking me if that was acceptable to use for the icon for that. All right, we are really out of time now.
I just never look at my formation saves, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're all out of time. If we didn't get to your question this week, don't worry, you'll have another opportunity to make us look like we don't know what's going on. Before we sign off, though, we'd like to thank our tireless mods. This week it was Gabe and Mars. They're the two folks who copy your questions into our questions doc and make chat awesome. So thanks to both of you.
And of course, thanks to all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, asking such great questions, and for enjoying the game. Without you, no one here would get to do what we do.
And we like what we do.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Bye. Click.
You're on joke duty today, Justin.
Oh, okay. What kind of paper likes music?
I don't know. What?
Wrapping paper.
Ooh.